Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into the story of a man whose ideas on the human soul were forged in a time of peace, only to be tested in one of history's absolute darkest chapters. We are talking about Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapira, the Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto. So let's start with a story. Picture this. It's years after the Holocaust. A young man is all alone in a dark synagogue. He pulls a random book off a shelf, takes it outside to read under a street lamp, and what he reads just completely changes his life. He later said, "I was in shock. Suddenly, here was someone who explains to educators how to educate." And that moment, right there, that's our jumping off point. Who was this Rebbe who could reach through the pages and speak so directly to someone's soul across all that time and all that tragedy? And what makes his ideas about faith and education so powerful, even today? All right, so to really get a handle on the man who would later write such profound things in the ghetto, we've got to rewind. We have to look at his work before the war, because that's where he started as a truly revolutionary educator. This slide, I think, just shows you everything you need to know about his priorities. You see, in a typical synagogue back then, the seats up front, the place of honor, were for the big shot scholars and the VIPs. But in the Rebbe's community, nope, he flipped the whole thing on its head. He had the children sit in a circle right there around him. He put them at the absolute center of it all. And he built his whole philosophy on this really crucial distinction between two Hebrew words. On the one hand, you have eluf, which comes from the word for training an animal. He saw that as just taming, imposing habits from the outside. But shenuch, that was something else entirely. For him, true education wasn't about pouring things in. It was about drawing out the unique potential that was already inside a person. So how did he actually do this? How do you practice chinuch? Well, the Rebbe saw this soul kind of like a room, and he believed unlocking a person's potential wasn't some big mystery, but a clear, structured path. And this lays out his process perfectly. It wasn't just some vague idea. It was a 3-step method. First, you gotta clean the room. He called this Sur Mera, turn from evil. That means tackling stuff like laziness, pride, apathy. Then, once the space is clear, you decorate the room, aseh tov, do good. This is where you actively bring in positive qualities. And only then, when the room is clean and beautiful, can you take that final step, to become a chassid, to actually move in and live that spiritual life. But believe it or not, this was all just the groundwork. For a very small, select group of his students, the Rebbe taught something far more radical. We're moving from education now to a secret mystical practice, basically a technique for achieving prophecy. He was wrestling with this massive question, one that gets to the very heart of faith. I mean, it's one thing to say you believe in something, but how do you experience it? How could he make the divine feel as real and provable as the chair you're sitting on? His answer was this secret meditation technique he called hashka'ata, which means quieting the mind. He taught that all that constant noise in our heads, the I think this, I feel that, I want this, that's the static that blocks the signal from the divine. Hashka'ata was a way to turn down the volume on that ego to hear something deeper. And this is the key. The whole point wasn't just to believe in God in some abstract, philosophical way. No way. The goal was to make that connection so real, so undeniable, that you could literally point to it and say, Zeh, that's Hebrew for this. This is my God. But this whole incredible philosophy, this system of education, of unlocking the soul, of trying to achieve prophecy, here's the thing. All of it was built in a time of relative peace. And it was about to face the ultimate test in the most horrific way you can imagine. And then, the world was just set on fire. He's trapped in the Warsaw Ghetto. The synagogues are gone. The schools are gone. The entire structure of religious life is just obliterated. And he's left with this absolutely impossible question. How do you serve God now? In this. His answer was to write. His manuscript from the ghetto, which he called Esh Kodesh, or Holy Fire, shows how writing became this incredible act of spiritual survival. It was a testimony to make sure his ideas would outlive him. But it was more than that. He saw it as engraving his actual soul onto the page. When all the normal rituals were impossible, the sacred act of writing itself became the commandment. And on this really deep, mystical level, he believed that writing about the suffering could actually somehow create salvation. And what's so powerful is that in his final thoughts, everything comes full circle. It all leads back to the very same ideas about education that he started with. He wrote that the true test of education isn't about how a student is doing right now, while the teacher is watching. The real proof, as the verse says, even when he is old, he will not depart from it. The real success is measured decades later, when the teacher is long gone, and those lessons are still alive inside that person. And the Rebbe lived this principle right to the very end. He was offered a chance to escape, to be rescued, but he refused. He chose to stay with his community. He was murdered in November 1943. But his manuscript, that holy fire, he buried it in a milk can. And after the war, they found it. A testament to an education that was literally designed to survive anything. So we're left with this, aren't we? What does it truly mean for an idea to be timeless? The Rebbe's life and his work, they challenge us to think about how ideas that are forged in the best of times can give us the strength, the meaning, and the humanity we need to endure the absolute worst.